Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm going to talk about pad rolling your SteelSeries Nova Pro Wireless. This is also going to be an explanation on what pad swapping can do to your headset or headphone because it affects a lot. It's not just style and comfort. So for those of you who don't know, the Nova Pro Wireless is one of my favorite wireless gaming headsets. It's arguably one of the best when it comes to overall features, reliability, the wireless performance, sound quality, etc. And there's a lot of things you can do with it, the swappable batteries, etc. So I like the headset. The one issue I had when I pointed it out in my review, the initial review of this, is there's an active noise cancellation microphone in the center. It's a rather large bump, and for some people, depending on your ear shape, it's a major issue of comfort. You have a hard piece of plastic pressing in the center of your ear. Now, other companies have gone with a slightly thicker pad, or they do a pad over the baffle itself so your ear doesn't feel that as much. The Barracuda Pro, for example, has a pad. But that's not the case with the Nova Pro. It has a shallow pad and you're basically feeling that plastic. Now, interestingly, it wasn't really an issue for me on my review. However, as my pads aged, they started getting softer and easier to compress after only a few months of use. I think these came out in May or June, and I use them a lot. And these are getting so soft and starting to collapse already that the bump from the active noise cancellation mic is already constantly pressing on my ear. So I was getting to the point where I basically haven't been using the Nova Pro Wireless as much. So I was really excited about the Wicked cushions. Now, typically what I get nervous about is how that impacts sound quality because it can negatively impact your sound. I'm going to get into frequency response measurements of the stock pad versus the Wicked cushion, the standard pad, versus the freeze. I'll talk about EQ tuning so you can make the most out of your pad swap, and then you can decide based off what my experiences are and what you've hopefully learned from the video if a pad swap is the right step for you or not. Now, all of these pads were sent to me for review by Wicked Cushions, so huge thanks to the owner of the company. And what's nice about it is we have like an open dialogue. I've kind of been explaining, my experiences with it, and I get really fast emails. It helps me provide an honest review. I have no preconditions or stuff that I'm supposed to say or do. It's just an honest review, and I think this will help you make your decision. So let's start with the basics because you may not care for the rest of this review based off what you hear now. They retail for $30 to $40. They do go on sale. They sell for less on his website directly or the Wicked Cushions website directly. And I may or may not have some revolving discounts, so check the description. I didn't care to set that up prior to doing this video because I really just want to get the information out there. If anything changes and I can save you money, I'll put that in the description. If not, even at retail, to me, it's worth the price. So let's get into the why. Now, I already mentioned the biggest concern is comfort. These are both a massive improvement in comfort. They get rid of that nub pain immediately. So for some people, you don't even need to worry about the rest. It's more comfortable. You also get the styling, of course. There's a lot of different finishes, both online and in front of me. So I have like the red camo, I have the Speed Racer, I have the whole 90s black, and there's a lot of really cool ways you can make it look unique. And they also have it available in pure black for both the standard cushion, which is the cheaper $30 cushion, and the Freeze edition, which is $40. Now the standard is more traditional. It's closer to the standard SteelSeries pad. It's a little bit different as far as how soft the pad is. It's a little bit more firm, but not by much. It's still very compliant, and for glasses, both the standard and the gel work incredibly well for glasses, so you have no extreme pressure points or anything like that. So the middle one is just a little bit thicker than stock, but thick enough to where you never feel the bump, and the Freeze is noticeably thicker. So I'm going to put some dimensions on the screen. Feel free to pause it, but that'll show you the difference on the overall ear pad depth, width, height, etc. Now, the two biggest concerns with swapping pads is comfort and sound performance, because swapping a pad will change the way your headset or headphone sound. There's just no way around it. And to give you the basics of that, it has to do with the surface material. So is it leatherette? Is it velour, suede, real leather, athletic fabric, etc.? Then you go by pad fill. What is inside the pad? Is it extremely dense? Is it going to absorb sound? Is it going to resonate? There's gel versus memory foam, traditional foam, etc. You have how stiff that pad is, because if it's really soft, the headset will compress the ear pad. And just to show you the top-down view, when that happens, you can see the pad kind of distort. and it shrinks. And the opening around your ear and how much the pad is distorting is going to make a difference on how that sounds as well. The thickness of the pad and how far that makes the driver from your ear will also change the sound quality. So there are so many things to consider, and everyone is going to have a different experience because your ear shape is different. Your sound preference is different. Some people want more bass or more treble or flat, etc. So there's a lot to consider. So just to cut right to the point, if you're 100% focused on pinpoint accuracy for footsteps, you don't care about comfort, the stock pads have the best imaging performance for footsteps, but only by a little. They also have a little bit more treble energy without being EQ'd, so they're going to sound the brightest, a little bit sharper sounding. The standard Wicked Cushion pad, it uses similar foam and surface material, a little bit stiffer fabric, which is nice. I actually like the fabric on this one more. I think it'll hold up better over time. You do lose a little bit of treble energy. You do maintain a similar bass performance. Soundstage is a little bit better once you EQ it, but the awareness for footsteps, it's just barely taken back. It's still excellent. I would much rather play, just again, be honest, I'd rather play Call of Duty or any game using the standard pad over the SteelSeries stock pad, because the Wicked Cushions pad to me is giving you so much better comfort at very little sacrifice to sound quality, especially when you tune it, it can actually get better. So I'll show you that soon. Now, if comfort is your primary concern, let's say you like, you know what, I don't care about 100% footstep accuracy. I play racing games. I play open world. I'm casual listening gaming type player. I play Stray, if you're using this on, PC or PlayStation. Then you look at the freeze gel. Now the freeze gel has a little bit more soft, flatter sound. The bass is less punchy. The treble energy is pulled back. So it sounds darker. It's less lively. Now you can fix a lot of that with EQ, which again, I will show you. But out of the box, this is the most excited sounding. Everything sounds a little bit tighter, a little bit punchier. This takes it, just softens it up just a little bit, but is much more comfortable. And this is the most extreme on both. It will soften the sound a bit more. You lose some of that dynamic punch and slam, but the long-term comfort is excellent. Normally gel is great for like the first 15 minutes, and then over time it starts feeling warmer because the gel absorbs all that heat and then it's holding the heat. But the choice of this sport fabric material plus the gel memory foam mix actually kept this cooler for a lot longer than I was expecting. So it is still extremely comfortable. And again, all these work great for glasses. Now, the last thing I want to point out before I get into frequency response measurements and tuning is clamp force. Now, a thinner pad with the same amount of pressure means you should have the lightest amount of clamp. As your pad gets thicker, that means it's pushing the headband out, so it should feel tighter. And of course, with the freeze, you're going to have the strongest clamp force with the freeze, but it's not that much because the Nova Pro has a very linear clamp force, and all three of these are still fine. It doesn't approach the extremes of what some other headsets do, like from Sennheiser or Turtle Beach. Those have a stronger clamp even on their stock pads. The only other thing I want to point out is this headband has different ways you can adjust the strap. Now, I recommend, if you can see that on the camera, hopefully you can, going to the two upper holes on this headband, because it increases the clamp force a little bit, and I find that you get better and more consistent bass response and sound quality by going with that strap configuration. All right, now I want to show you the frequency response measurements of the Nova Pro Wireless as it comes out of the box with stock pads. Show you how it measures, but just by switching pads to the standard Wicked Cushions pad, and then the Freeze Edition to see how that impacts sound before any EQ. So here's the frequency response of the Nova Pro Wireless. As you could tell, not really flat anywhere. It kind of goes up and down across the entire frequency range from bass to treble. Now, if I enable the standard Wicked Cushions pad, you can see quite a big change. Now, part of this again is from the pad material. Part of this is from the pad depth, the opening, and how it's interacting with my measuring rig. But one thing that stands out is you can see the bass response is actually a little bit smoother. You don't have a valley in that 60 hertz region down here. It actually kind of has more of a gradual roll off, which is what you want. Now the mids are scooped down a little bit, and then you can see it coming back up. And this is what I was talking about earlier. It doesn't have quite the same treble energy as it did on the stock pad. It's just a little bit softer sounding. However, there is a noticeable little uptick, in this case, right around 11,000 hertz or 11 kilohertz. So I just wanted to show you this, and it also got rid of the dip, by the way, at 5K, which was really cool. It kind of flattened it out a little bit. So now I want to show you what the freeze looks like in comparison. So I'll leave these all up. Now the freeze has that soft athletic fabric on what touches your ear. It's an even larger pad, and all that's going to change the way the bass sounds. Overall, you lose a little bit of energy from the pad, so you have to amplify it slightly more. But the bass, again, is very smooth, and you have a nice gradual pickup into the upper mid-range. And you can see in the treble region, in some parts of the treble, it's actually even brighter than the mid-tier pad. It has a little bit more energy, around 5 to 5.5K, but then it's more subdued when you get to the 7,000 hertz region. So, and then you look in the upper treble, and again, some similar characteristics, but overall very different than how the Nova Pro stock pad measures. Now, I measured this, no joke, like 3 to 5 times each, repositioning the pads before I even got to the EQ tuning part. I took so many measurements to make sure that this is a good representation of what it actually measures and sounds like before moving on. So now that we know how it changes, if you don't do any EQ, so be it, but this is how it's going to get you out of the box. Now, I have Sonar EQ settings I'm going to go through, and I also have DAC Tune EQs that I want to show you. So that's going to help you tune it for the console side. So if you're just playing on Xbox and PlayStation, let's just go with the DAC part. So because the base Wicked Cushion pad doesn't alter the sound as dramatically, I didn't have to EQ it as dramatically either. I basically brought back some of the treble energy that was missing, and I also addressed just a little bit of the mid bass, or the lower bass region, to help make it a more seamless transition into the mids. So you can see that I increased the 62 hertz by +2, and then I added some treble at 4 through 16K. Take a snapshot of this, pause it, whatever it may be, and you can even see that I altered the mid-range across the board. Mostly a small lift, but overall these are the changes I made. So that will address the mid-tier, again, the one that's all leatherette, no gel, for console gaming. Now, I made a wireless EQ tuning video for the Nova Pro in the past using the stock pads and using the DAC to try to get the most out of the headset. So when you look at my new tune for the Wicked Cushion pad versus the DAC tune that I did in the past, you can see I was actually able to get it to be fairly close in some areas. Now, there are a couple decibel changes here. To some people, you may not notice that. I think what's really cool and interesting is the upper treble energy that you get between the 4 and 7K is mostly restored. They have a slightly different pattern to them, and it's a little bit brighter above 10,000 kilohertz. But overall, it's going to give you a comparable gaming experience, again, to the stock pad. So if you just want to get rid of that nub pressure point in the center of your ear and you want improved comfort without straying away too far from the sound quality that you're used to, just stick with the $30 Wicked Cushion pad and you can get very close. Now, the Wicked Cushion Freeze pad has very different sound characteristics, and it required a totally different tuning approach. So I'm showing you how to tune the DAC if you bought the Freeze pad. And on the Freeze pad, I took a little bit of bass energy away at 31 hertz. You can see minus 1.5 dB, then it's +1, plus 1.5, +2, minus 0.5, -3, -1, 0, +2, and -2.5. There's a lot of changes to affect the EQ of that pad because it sounds very different than the stock pad out of the box. However, once tuned, you can actually get a great sound out of it. So let me show you how that compares. So again, you can see that there's a little bit different bass response, but overall it is a similar curve. You get a little bit extra bass with the Freeze pad, partly because, and it's a different sounding bass. It's not just about amplitude or how loud it is. So with this pad on, the bass is gonna sound a little bit deeper, a little bit stronger in overall decibel or volume. However, it's not as tight or punchy sounding. Everything's kind of smoothed over and a little bit slower sounding bass. So it's just because it's more doesn't mean you're going to hear a harder hitting punch. It's just the nature of having a thicker pad. The mid-range, I lifted up a little bit. I think this is going to sound better, especially if you listen to music. This EQ tune with the Freeze pad actually works really nice for music as well. I was able to get very close to the stock measurements, again, the stock pad, when you get to 2,000 to 3,000 hertz. And then I actually got the 4,000 to 8,000 kilohertz range to be lifted a little bit. There is a little bit of a dip here, in the upper 7s, and there's a massive dip around 13K that is caused by the way that pad interacts with sound. It's really just, I can only tune so much on the DAC because the DAC has fixed bands on what you can change. So I can't like boost the band next to it because then I'm actually increasing something that shouldn't have been increased. So this is about as close as I can get, and it still sounds really good. Like I said, it just lacks a little bit of that punch and tightness that the smaller pads have. Now where it gets really interesting is when you can start using Sonar to EQ everything. And again, I took very different approaches on both to get the desired result, and I think they both can sound excellent once you've done that. So in Sonar, this is for the standard Wicked Cushion pad, not the Freeze. So what I did here is there is a peaking EQ of -2 dB. You can see that little peaking IQ or EQ icon up top. -2 dB at 150 Hertz with a Q of 1. And I'm gonna basically, instead of going through every single thing this time, I'm gonna essentially show you the snapshots of every icon and the measurements on the left. So again, just pause this. This video is gonna get way too long if I start explaining everything. But what's important to note is all of these are peaking EQs. So the type you're doing is basically a notch, and the Q is determining how wide or narrow that notch is, and then of course you're choosing your frequency and decibel. So I will have all of this put on the screen on the left to make it easier for you, and once you have that, mirror it, and then you can tune from there. Now once you're done with the Sonar tuning, this is what it measures like. So the bright blue, this teal color right here, that's the best, or close to the best, I shouldn't say the best. That was how I tuned the stock Nova Pro Wireless with Sonar. And I was really happy with the sound performance, and based off the video, a lot of people were too. So when you go to this cushion, the red cushion, which is the mid-tier Wicked Cushion pad, you can see it's very, very close across the board. If anything, this pad improved bass and tonality from the bass region to lower mid-range, which means it's less of like a roller coaster of spikes and dips. And it's smoother, which means it sounds more natural. So when you listen to music, you don't have a random bass note that doesn't quite sound as tight or as loud as you expected it to. Then when you get into the mid-range, you can see this really nice curve that approaches your 2 to 3K region, which is very closely following the Harman curve. Harman curve is kind of like, based off research, the reference sound that most consumers prefer. Now, the difference though is on the stock Nova pads, you lose a lot of treble detail. It kind of gets dark from like 3 to 5K. It's just the way the pad is. They have to do that because otherwise it sounds too shouty or painful in your ear. It's not so much an issue with this, so I was able to get some of that volume back, which is that green line again. This is the new tune. It doesn't have the same treble peak that I have at 8K. If you like that boost in treble, you can target it. Again, this is just a baseline, so you can tune it as you wish. And then the fall off is fairly similar air in the treble region. Overall, it's a great sounding tune, and I really, really like this pad on it. Now, the Freeze pad required a different approach on Sonar. This is a very different looking tune, even though they measure somewhat similar to each other. To fix it, I had to calibrate everything very differently in Sonar. So the first dot I want to point out, it's not a peaking EQ like all these others here. It is a low shelf. So to switch that, you can click where it says low shelving, and you can see your options here. Peaking EQ is the most popular, but a low shelf is what we need to properly address the bass. Now I did a +2 decibel gain at 100 Hertz with a 0.5 Q, a very, very wide, slight lift. And that's only because of how I'm tuning the treble. I wanted to make sure I preserved some of that warmth and bass that I like on the other pads, so games can still sound fun and have a lot of immersion and be fun to play. So 370 Hertz, I lifted at 4 decibels, a Q of 1.815. Now the rest of these are all peaking EQs. So again, I'm just gonna slowly go through all these. I'll show you a screenshot, just pause it, and then you can use those settings to apply it to yours. And once you've done that, you have a very well measured headset. So I'm gonna show you the bass performance and overall frequency tuning as a result. And you can see I lifted the bass slightly, and that's because the bass doesn't sound as tight, so it's perceived to be quieter than it actually is because of the way this pad material is and the depth. So I actually lifted the bass a little bit to keep some of that warmth. But you can see that line where it goes down is still extremely smooth. In fact, I like the bass curve more on the Freeze pad than the stock pad. Mid-range is excellent, nothing changes here. I have a really nice smooth increase as you get into the upper mids and low treble region. Again, just like the upgraded Wicked Cushion pad, The freeze lets me preserve a little bit more detail in that 4,000 to 5,000 hertz range. And then I couldn't quite get the sharpness that I was going for. When you look at like the 8K region, I didn't want that spike to be as loud. It's just the way the pad comes across and how it interacted with my ear. If I were to enable the Harman curve, just to show you what I mean, this red line right here, this is like the target ideal smoothness for frequency response on audio. The goal that some manufacturers tend to tune their headphones or headsets towards. Some people want more bass, and on gaming, you typically want a little bit more bass than that, which is what you see. Now, you can see when you get into the mid-range into low treble, this part right here matches the Harman curve extremely well. So that's why the Nova Pro sounds so great for music. And then on the treble, upper treble region, you can see that I set up the freeze pad to more closely mimic the Harman curve because otherwise it may sound too sharp or sibilant. The good news is, I just want to show you this. If you need more bass or more mid-range or treble, now that you have this custom EQ tune done in Sonar, you can use the sliders at the bottom to help give you more bass energy or less. Or if you want it to have a little bit more sparkle and treble up top, just grab the treble slider and slide it up. And you can see that I'm preserving my slopes and adjustments, but I'm lifting that region as a whole. So this is a good baseline, then you can fine tune from there. If you really want more bass or less, click on that green dot I have here, and your colors may be different depending on the order, but the 100 hertz shelf, just increase or decrease it by a few dB, and that's going to affect your entire bass region. So hopefully now by the end of this video, you've decided, I guess, if this is a good idea for you or not. I can tell you, just because this is starting to collapse on me, it was getting so uncomfortable, I felt like I had no choice. Even though the imaging performance is like 1 or 2% better for footsteps on the stock pad, once tuned, I felt that I still really enjoyed the mid-tier pad the most for gaming. It still kept a lot of that tightness and punchiness. It's just a matter of what you like. Do you want the utmost comfort? Almost through that. The freeze pad is so comfortable for long gaming. It's no joke. And for like casual gaming, playing a racing game, things like that, the freeze pad to me makes a lot of sense. It's just, you can wear it for hours, glasses or not, and be extremely comfortable. How I use my Nova Pro is for more the like FPS gaming, my couch gaming when I'm playing Warzone 2, and the mid-tier Wicked Cushion pad gave me the closest to the max competitive edge I can get on any wireless headset. It's about as good as it gets. Once EQ'd, I was really happy with it, but most importantly, it fixed the EQ, or it fixed the comfort, because the comfort was becoming a serious issue. So hopefully you found this video helpful. Again, I'm not doing anything for like kickbacks. I may have some links in the description that helps you save some money. So keep an eye on that. But ultimately, retail price or not, it's worth it even at full price of $40 for the freeze. I love the end result that you get purely from comfort, and with the right EQ, you're good to go. I just find that, just to summarize, these kind of smooth everything over. You don't get extreme peaks or tightness. Everything's a little bit looser and flatter and less dynamic sounding, but still extremely comfortable. This preserves most of the sound quality. It has similar heat characteristics. It will get warm like the stock pad, but not as quickly and not as hot. So overall, it's still an improvement on temperature, and you get to preserve a lot of that tightness and sound quality. Really can't go wrong with any of it, but ultimately the Wicked Cushions for me is almost a necessity for the SteelSeries Nova Pro. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This video took days to make, hundreds of measurements and hours of research, because I wanted to make sure that this content was accurate, and you can't hide behind numbers in this case. So yeah, thank you so much again for the support, and I'll see you next time. Bye.